Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to replace the rear brakes on my 2008 Impala with Callahan brakes, made famous from the movie Tommy
Our
Boy.
new brake pads are really cool. You're not even going to believe it.
Actually, I believe the rights to the Callahan name were purchased after the movie some years later by Power Stop Brakes. Just some of the unboxing. It's the rear brake rotor, wrapped in plastic, and there's some kind of corrosion inhibitor applied to these. I believe there's some type of oil on them that I cleaned off. You'll see that later on in the video. And the tools I used: 3/8 ratchet, a couple of sockets, I think 14 and 13 millimeter, T30 Torx screwdriver, a decent C-clamp, and a flat piece of steel. I used a file to press in the caliper pistons. Then I got my Dremel tool out to clean some of the surface rust off of the face of the hub. And brake clean. I use a lot of brake cleaner and brake grease. And don't forget the paper towel. So I'm breaking the bolts loose for the caliper right now. I don't think these brakes have ever been changed on this car. I was lucky enough to purchase this vehicle from an older couple who kept it in the garage most of the time. But I've been putting a lot of miles on it lately and needs a little TLC. So I'm going to pull the pads out of there, and they're not really worn down too much. Now I'm loosening the caliper bracket bolts. I'm going to remove that bracket so we can take the rotor off. And there's the bracket. Now these pins, the caliper pins or bolts that I pulled out of there were a little bit rusty. So I'm going to clean those up a little bit. I'm also going to use some brake cleaner and a wire brush to clean up the holes inside the caliper bracket. Then I'll put some white grease in there to help lubricate them. And got the T30 Torx. Break this screw loose. Same as the front brakes. This screw does not want to come out of there, so I'm going to put in use my breaker bar here for blocking the hub from turning. Stick it between the studs and leverage it against the concrete. Put my vice grips on my Torx screwdriver and it breaks loose. And this rotor didn't want to come off too easily. But I got it. So I'm going to clean the face of the hub, get that surface rust off of there. Wash all that dust off. Now I'm going to clean off the corrosion inhibitor or whatever they've got on these rotors. I'm going to hose it down real well and get all that stuff off of there. We want to line it up with that Torx screw hole. Doesn't want to go on with that inside emergency brake, so I'm going to use the butt of a hammer. Now replace the Torx screw. Basically just put it back together the way it came apart. Now I'm going to remove the master cylinder cap to relieve the pressure from pressing in the piston on the calipers. Here I'm laying my file flat against the face of the piston, putting the C-clamp over it, and slowly cranking in the C-clamp until that piston is pressed in all the way. I'm going to set that aside, and you don't want to leave that dangling, the caliper dangling. Make sure it's supported so it's not pulling on the hose. Now I'm going to clean up the caliper bracket, especially inside the holes where the caliper pins go, where the rust was at. Now I'm wrapping a paper towel around that wire brush so I can try to clean some of the dirty brake cleaner out of there. Get as much out as I can. I'm going to spray some white lithium grease inside. Got to replace the clips on the bracket that hold the brake pads in place. So I put the new clips on, and then I'm going to apply just a little bit of brake grease where the pads slide into the clips. You want to be careful not to get that grease on the rotor or on the face of the pads. You just bolt that bracket back on. Make sure these bolts are good and tight. There's probably a torque spec. I'm sure there's a torque spec on it, but I rarely use those. Then apply some brake grease, like I said, to where the pads slide in. You can put the grease on the pad, the ends, or the clips themselves, whichever you're more comfortable with, I guess. Here I'm just putting it on the ends of the pads. Just the portion of the pad that slides into those clips. You don't want to get too much grease on there. Slide the pads in, and you're ready to put the caliper back on. And I'm going to apply a little bit of grease to the portion of the caliper that touches the back side of the pad. Then we're going to put our caliper pins or bolts in. Sometimes it takes a minute to get these in the right place to get them started. Tighten those down. And that's about it. Do the other side the same way. Thanks for watching.